Hello and welcome back to the Cosmic Vortex. I'm your host Troy, and in today's video we're breaking down episode 7 of WandaVision. With the combination of a big villain reveal and one of our main characters getting some superpowers, it's very clear that WandaVision is ramping up towards a big finale in 2 weeks' time. So as always on this channel, we're here to break down the episode, talk about it in depth, give my review on it, and give some theories for future episodes. So without any further ado, let's get right into the breakdown. As far as I can tell, this will be the last episode to take any kind of sitcom influence, because by the end of it, there really is no going back. This episode takes some clear inspiration from Modern Family, with the side shots of characters talking to camera, breaking the fourth wall, and the episode opens up with Wanda feeling extremely guilty for her actions in the previous episode, expanding the Hex, bringing a bunch more people in, but managing to save Vision in the process, who strangely enough we do not see reunite with Wanda at all during this episode. Wanda is alone in bed trying to process what she did last night, and even shoos Billy and Tommy away when they ask for her help with the game system, which seems to be constantly changing while they're trying to use it, an issue which persists throughout the episode. Wanda promising to the camera that she's going to spend a whole day at home as punishment for her actions. Billy and Tommy are having a small fight once Wanda comes down in her pajamas and dressing gown, looking pretty tired, distraught, and just a bit downtrodden, and not really having a lot of energy, and not even really talking to her kids very much. She makes herself some cereal for breakfast, but whilst doing so notices that the milk bottle changes several times. At one point though, the milk bottle had a picture for a missing person. I couldn't quite make out who it was. I thought for a second it was one of the kids, but I'm not too sure who that was. We then get what I believe is our final sitcom intro for a WandaVision episode. Now, I might be missing some influence from Modern Family here because I've never watched that sitcom, but the intro gave me very strong Office US vibes. Just from the music and the way that the intro was done, especially the last section seemed very much like The Office, but either way, cool little jingle, nice intro, and then we get straight into the main body of the episode. Kicking us off with Tyler, whom we only see once during this episode in this opening sequence, and only for a brief period of time too. The WandaVision sitcom broadcast is dead, and SWORD have no way of monitoring now what's going on inside of Westview beyond the GPS trackers we saw last episode. And so Tyler decrees to a fellow member of SWORD that wasn't affected by the expansion of the Hex, or should we say Hexpansion, that they launch today with whatever their big grand plan is, of which we're not told. Cut back inside the Hex and we see Vision waking up in the circus that was created as a result of the aforementioned Hexpansion. The circus performers try to get Vision to help out with their show, asking him to assist the escape artist, who we see is none other than Darcy. Meanwhile, back at the house, Tommy and Billy ask about Vision, and Wanda replies by saying that if he doesn't want to be here, there's nothing she can do about it. Swiftly followed by a question about Pietro, to which Wanda replies that he is not their uncle either. Billy and Tommy try to press for more information, but Wanda simply replies by saying she doesn't have any of the answers, and is starting to believe that everything is meaningless. This is then quickly followed up by the arrival of Agnes, who comes in and takes control of the kids to give Wanda some space, offering to look after them for the rest of the day. Billy and Tommy don't seem too excited about the idea, but Wanda is very keen to take Agnes up on her offer, and so Agnes and the boys leave for her house immediately, leaving Wanda to enjoy some much needed privacy while the items in her home keep changing. Now we cross over to Jimmy and Moniker, who are just about to finish their drive that we saw them start on last night as the Hex began to expand. Jimmy reads up on the cataract file that Darcy sent him, which explains that Vision was actually not being broken apart by SWORD and Tyler, but actually being put back together to be revived. It's not 100% clear as to what Tyler's intentions were in bringing Vision back to life, but I very much doubt he was going to bring him back to life and hand him over to the Avengers. The truck then pulls up to a large heavy goods vehicle surrounded by some SWORD soldiers that seem to have broken away from the main body, and within them is Moniker's supposed aerospace engineer, who actually isn't anybody we know at all. It's just some woman called Major Goodner, a character who has absolutely no connections with Marvel Comics, and so completely pulled the rug under all of us, thinking it was some kind of character we'd already seen either in the comics or in the MCU. But after a brief discussion, Goodner offers Moniker a space rover to use in ramming through the Hex, allowing Moniker to enter the Hex without falling under Wanda's influence. Meanwhile, back at the circus, Vision is trying to find out if Darcy remembers what happened last night, and she clearly has no recollection, leading to Vision doing the same trick that he's done in the last couple of episodes to Norm and to Agnes. Well, maybe not Agnes, but we'll get into that shortly. Freeing them from Wanda's influence and allowing them to speak as themselves. Darcy and Vision then make a prompt escape from the circus to get back to Wanda in order to try and unite our cast for the first time in the show. Vision does make an effort to ask Darcy first whether or not he knows if the kids are safe, or who the Pietro is that turned up on their door in episode 5 and was present throughout episode 6, but doesn't appear in episode 7. Or does he? Back at the house, things are starting to get a lot worse as items are constantly changing in front of Wanda, and she's even seeing hints of previous episodes of the sitcom. In particular, the stalk from episode 3 appearing and disappearing in a puff of red smoke, in a very similar way to how Wanda initially tried to hide the stalk from Moniker whilst she was under her influence. Wanda makes it very clear that she doesn't understand why everything is falling apart, and also, strangely enough, why she can't fix it, and then supposedly someone behind the camera in one of these offside shots questions if she thinks that this is maybe what what she deserves. Wanda quickly appears very confused by this, pointing out that the people behind the camera are not supposed to speak, and then immediately cutting to our ad break for the episode. Advertising antidepressants named Nexus. Key taglines including wanting to be left alone whilst the world goes on without you, which to me refers to Wanda being left alone after the blip whilst everyone else is trying to pick up their lives. And the advert ends by saying, because the world doesn't revolve around you, or does it? Because now Wanda has at least some control over this new reality she's living in, she's able to control it, and so now the world does revolve around her just that little bit more than it did after the blip when she was left feeling quite alone. To be fair though, the name Nexus had me thinking for a while that I'd heard it before in connection to Marvel, and then I realised what it was connecting to. Let's move on. We open up next on Billy, Tommy, and Agnes inside of Agnes's house, the first time we've seen inside her house since the start of this show. Agnes is trying her best to make the kids feel at home, and Billy points out that he likes Agnes's house, and Agnes in particular, because she's quiet on the inside. This links back to an earlier comment Billy made when Wanda was still in bed at the start of the episode, in which he said that he was feeling some noise in his head, probably relating to the fact that his powers revealed themselves at the end of episode 6, and them being quite similar to those of Wanda's. There are a couple of off-camera shots from Agnes yet again, and in one of them she mentions Ralph, and now that we've seen inside her house and still not met Ralph, and also considering the other thing relating to Agnes I'm going to be getting to quite soon, I am seriously wondering as to who Ralph is at this point, because there's clearly some kind of character that's going to get dropped, and I'm guessing it's going to surprise all of us. We then cut back to Moniker, Jimmy, and Major Goodner as they're about to breach through the hex and see if Moniker can actually get to Wanda without falling under her influence once again. But once Moniker gets in the truck and tries to drive it at the anomaly, she finds that it actually won't go through the hex barrier, despite Major Goodner's claims just seconds before that it would get through very easily. And the harder Moniker tries to push the truck through, the less it works, slowly tipping the truck upwards as it then begins to fall into the hex. But what becomes quickly obvious to everyone, in particular Jimmy, is that it is not making it through unscathed, and the truck is being rearranged in the way anything else has been when entering the hex. Moniker quickly climbs out of the truck to escape being transformed again, decides that she's going to just walk in by herself, dropping her helmet and walking to the barrier. I have no idea what was going through her head when she didn't at least think to put the helmet on, let alone go in there without the truck, but either way, she pushes into the hex barrier and actually gets through. What follows is a slow montage of Moniker making it through the hex barrier, which is surprisingly thick now, but also hearing audio quotes from Carol, her mum, Maria Rambeau, Nick Fury, mostly discussing Moniker, one of which being Nick Fury's quote, "Only if you learn to glow like your Auntie Carol," almost immediately after which Moniker gets glowing blue eyes. Going through the hex has, as I predicted, created some powers within Moniker, allowing her to get through the hex barrier and enter Westview without falling under the influence of Wanda. We even get a moment to see her new vision from her perspective and see that she's seeing things in the world slightly differently before her vision regulates again and she takes off the suit, rushing quickly to Wanda's house. Cut back then to Darcy and Vision, who are now driving towards Wanda's house but still on the outskirts of Westview. During the drive, Darcy's been providing Vision with a bunch of context related to his life before Westview, but out of seemingly nowhere they come up to a crossroads with a red light, swiftly followed by a bunch of construction workers coming over to fix the light which is stuck on red, blocking the entire road and preventing Darcy and Vision from getting any further. While they're waiting, Vision asks Darcy if she knows why he can't leave Westview, and Darcy replies by saying she has no idea what's going on with Vision, but does know one thing, that the love between Wanda and Vision is real, and that they belong together. Of which I agree. Don't kill Vision! Crossing back over into central Westview, Monica turns up at Wanda's door, leaving Wanda very shocked as to how she got there, and Monica quickly tries to explain that Tyler is fighting against Wanda whilst Monica wants to help her, but Wanda doesn't believe any of it. Wanda hurls a bunch of accusations at Monica, one in particular being that she believes S.W.O.R.D. were responsible for the Pietro that turned up in episode 5. Monica tries to deny this, but Wanda claims that all she does is lie, and tries to shove Monica away, but Monica's powers block Wanda, and Monica is able to land on the ground in a very Deadpool-fashioned superhero landing, leading to the two having a one-on-one face-off where Monica is slowly beginning to win Wanda over, persuading her that Tyler is the bad guy, Wanda is not the villain despite her own beliefs that she might be becoming one, and you can tell in Wanda's face that she's slowly being won over by Monica, until Agnes shows up and screws the entire thing up. And at this point I was convinced my predictions about Agnes knowing more than she let on were coming to fruition, as Agnes pushes Monica away, reaffirms Wanda's beliefs, and walks off with Wanda to her house, leaving Monica behind outside of Wanda's. But before we get to the final scene, we cross back over to Vision and Darcy once more where the roadworks end, and as they're about to drive in the truck again, they then find a whole group of school children are now crossing the same crossroads. At which no doubt most of us realised, if we hadn't realised already, that something was going on to keep Vision and Darcy in that place. Someone was creating lots of obstacles to stop the truck from getting back home. There is a small 2-camera monologue from Vision before he quickly and humorously realises that he's wasting time talking to a camera and confusingly gets up, takes his mic off and says he's going back home to his wife, swiftly followed by him levitating out of the van, through the roof and towards the house, leaving Darcy behind to wait in the truck. But then we cut back to Agnes's house for the final section of this episode. Wanda is sat in Agnes's living room in the exact same place that Billy and Tommy were and notices the half-eaten sandwiches and the kids show that's currently showing on the TV, but can't see Billy and Tommy anywhere. When she asks Agnes where the kids are, she suggests that the kids have gone down to the basement to play, so Wanda gets up, heads down to the basement and tries to find them. What she finds though is a very dark and dingy basement with not a sound coming from it. She explores a little bit before she finds a strange corridor at the end of it, surrounded by what look like vines and branches. And going into this corridor, we see the aspect ratio change from 16:9 back down to the typical Marvel Studios letterbox lines film aspect ratio, for what I believe will be the final time. Because Wanda finds a large room underground to connect to this basement with a bunch of artifacts and cabinets and a book on display that is glowing. Looking visibly confused, Agnes quickly walks in behind her, shuts all the doors keeping Wanda inside the room with her, and then explains that Wanda was not the only magical gal in town. And as a lot of people had predicted, Agnes was actually the comic book character Agatha'S Husband, a witch that has been pulling the strings from the beginning. Followed up by what will no doubt be a theme that is going to be stuck in my head for the next week, called It's Agatha All Along, explaining her roles in some of the key events in the show, in particular being responsible for Pietro turning up at her door in episode 5, and additionally killing Sparky. I did think it was very strange in that episode that we didn't see Sparky die and that Agnes just happened to appear with a dead dog in her arms. So while I'm very sad to find out she did kill the dog, I cannot say I am surprised. But now with Wanda trapped in the basement under Agatha's influence and with it very clear as to who's in charge, we cut to the please stand by screen and the end of the episode. Or is it? Well, actually it's not, because we've gone back to typical Marvel fashion of having a mid-credit scene. After the main show theme plays, we cut back to Moniker trying to get into Agatha's house and finding a basement door around the side of the house that she's about to go into before Pietro spots her, and we see Monica's eyes turn purple in the exact same way that Agatha's eyes are purple and that she made Wanda's eyes turn when she revealed her identity to Wanda. So with Wanda trapped and Monica taken hostage by Pietro, the only person left who could possibly stand a chance against them is Vision, who is still on his way to the house and we haven't seen just yet. Whew, okay, so that's the end of the episode and it's time to talk about my thoughts on it and my theories. So I've got a few things I want to discuss about this episode, so let's not waste any time and get straight into it. First off, I'm very interested to see what Tyler's plan is for dealing with Wanda. We know it's something to do with killing Wanda to try and close the Westview anomaly, although as we know now, killing Wanda won't change anything because Agatha's the one pulling the strings. So how exactly Tyler plans to kill Wanda is going to be very interesting, and I suppose we'll see it all play out next week. Sticking with Tyler though, what exactly were his intentions in trying to bring Vision back to life? I personally believe he was trying to bring him back to be some kind of Sword assistant, to not be an Avenger, to not go back to everybody else, but to work for Sword, to be a representative and an agent for Sword, doing what I suppose would be anything Tyler wants. I'm not really too sure, but I'm interested to see where that goes too. But the most important 3 questions I have are as follows. Who is Ralph? Who is Evan Peters' character actually? And where are Billy and Tommy? Ralph has been mentioned since the very first episode of WandaVision as being Agnes's husband, or should I say Agatha'S husband, but we've never seen him on screen, we just keep hearing him being mentioned, so obviously he's some kind of character linked to Agatha'S Harkness who's going to turn up hopefully in episode 8 or maybe episode 9. Maybe it's Mephisto, it could be that he's in leagues with Agatha'S Harkness, and so several theories combine to unite who's actually responsible for this world. It's not completely clear, but I do think there is a fairly decent likelihood that Mephisto could also be involved, and he could be taking this alias of Ralph. As for Evan Peters, I'm not really sure how he plays a role anymore, because obviously we know Agatha orchestrated his appearance. Is it even the same person that we saw in the X-Men films, or is it just someone who looks like him in this universe who actually isn't Quicksilver? It's a very strange one, because we have seen him use his powers, so I don't know how he'd have those powers otherwise, so I'm really confused as to who this Evan Peters is. It could still be Pietro from the X-Men films, I'm not saying it's guaranteed not to be. He could be the same person, but under Agatha's influence, it's just too hard to tell right now. And as I've said, where are Billy and Tommy? I don't know where they've got to. They were nice and safe with Agnes, and all of a sudden, they disappeared. I'm presuming Agatha has them somewhere as hostage, but I just don't know, because they literally vanished into thin air. But to close off my theories, there is one more thing I do want to discuss, and that is that both Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany have said repeatedly that there is going to be a key cameo in the show that has not yet been leaked. A character is going to turn up that has not yet been revealed by casting details or leaks of any kind. Who it's going to be, I have absolutely no idea. I would like to see Doctor Strange show up, since WandaVision leads into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but whoever it is, it's going to be an interesting time, and I would like to think they'll hopefully show up, perhaps for an end of episode 8 stinger in the same way that Evan Peters turned up at the end of episode 5. But I'm sure all this and more will be revealed in the next episode of WandaVision, which, by the way, I've got to say, is probably going to be a lot longer. There was a rumour going around over the last 7 days that the last 3 episodes of WandaVision would each be an hour long, which in the end was debunked, and I didn't actually realise that, but when I've worked it out, all of these 7 episodes, including all the credits, currently amounts to 4.1 hours. In other words, about 4 hours 6 minutes. Which means that if WandaVision is actually made up of exactly 6 hours content, there is 1 hour and 54 minutes left for the last 2 episodes. Which means that either the last 2 episodes will be roughly an hour each, or even better, and kind of what I want them to do, they'll make episode 8 another half an hour stint episode, and the last episode will be feature length. Not like a 2 hour or 2.5 hour film that a lot of Marvel films have been recently, but an 80-90 minute episode that brings WandaVision to a dramatic conclusion, solves all the problems, and sets everything up for future MCU projects. I would really like to see that, but I just can't guarantee it because I really don't know. But let's say they're not counting credits, that frees up a whole lot of time for the length of the last 2 episodes. So either way, we're good to go for some pretty cool WandaVision content for the final 2 episodes. But either way, to round off the video, I'm going to give my thoughts on this episode with a score out of 10. And for me, I've said several times that I thought the sitcom element was going to die, and I think now it definitely has died for sure. We've got the dramatic cliffhanger, we had a mid-credit scene finally for the first time in this show, we had the letterbox line aspect ratio changing yet again. It feels now as though we're way too deep into the show to start going back to sitcoms, and I think this really is the final turning point, and the last 2 episodes will just go full tilt MCU. While I really enjoyed this episode and there was nothing I particularly disliked, I do think it started off a bit slow again, but did make up for it towards the end of the episode, and so I'm going to give episode 7 of WandaVision an 8 out of 10. But that is the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed it. As always, if you have, make sure you give it a thumbs up to let me know you've enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to the episode 8 breakdown next week and the episode 9 breakdown 2 weeks from now. I'll be looking forward to sharing all of my thoughts on those last 2 episodes at those points. So until then, thank you all very much for watching. As I've said, make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the Cosmic Vortex if you haven't yet, to keep in touch with everything WandaVision and beyond once I finally start making more content for this channel besides WandaVision breakdowns. Believe me, more stuff is coming, I promise. But until that stuff comes, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all next time with another WandaVision breakdown. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and thanks for watching the Cosmic Vortex.